Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Run It Back, the show we try to get things right the second time. In today's episode, we're going to be going over a draft sent in by one of my good friends, IRL. Goes by the name Beer Emoji Online. We're going to dive into it now. As we open up Pack 1, Pick 1, I'm struck here with a couple of different cards that I'm very excited to see. One of which is this Back for More. I think this is a very, very good card, particularly if you can use something like a Spinewoods Armadillo to get the value by discarding and then getting it back later, or, of course, even things like Old Rutstein to get it back, kill a creature, get something else back, and just kind of continuously go out for value. I've never actually played this Caught in the Crossfire, but some people have been telling me it's better and better than it actually looks. Also don't mind a Nimble Brigand, a Shepherd of the Clouds, and then as we start moving down into the commons, I like this Bridled Bighorn as well as the Raven of Fell Omens. Now, one of my struggles I have with this Bridled Bighorn is the fact that it kind of wants to go in the Mounts deck, it wants to go in green-white, that all looks good. But the Shepherd of the Clouds also wants to go in the Mounts deck and also wants to end up playing in green-white or blue-white, something similar. And this is just a far better card. Flying and Vigilance over just the Vigilance. I know we get the Sheep. I know we have a Mount, like that is important. But in theory, you'd be able to take this Shepherd of the Clouds now and wheel the Bighorn, maybe the Briarpack Sentry. There's lots of good cards that you'd be able to get from this just by starting off with the Shepherd of the Clouds. And I think this card definitely wins the game a lot more often than this Bridled Bighorn does, because this one also flies. So I think I'd like to start off with a Shepherd of the Clouds if we're going to go down this route, but I don't mind having a Bighorn here. Pack 1, Pick 2, I see things like Intimidation Campaign, Murder, Pixie, another Bighorn, lots of good things, Deserts do. We pick up a Thunder Lasso, which again, I don't mind. One of the things that Thunder Lasso does really well is it triggers crime every turn. Now, with a Bighorn, that doesn't really mean that we want to do too much crime, but at the same time, if we end up playing things like this Bighorn, maybe this Nurturing Pixie, those sorts of things, we want to end up tapping down one maybe big threat, like an Armadillo or a Cactarantula, and then getting in with everything else. That definitely makes sense to me. I also have really liked Skewer the Critics and Murder, so, dipping into those colors seems pretty good. A Nurturing Pixie is not bad as a 2/2 flyer, but you do need something else on the battlefield in order to make it such that. But I think probably my pick here would be this Creosote Heath. Fixing is important. We really want to be in green-white if we're taking things like Bighorn, pick 1, or the Shepherd, pick 1, and so this just giving you that fixing, extra little damage, this makes sense to me. I'm a little low on the lasso. I don't think it's that important unless we're doing crime all the time. Pack 1, Pick 3. This one looks good. Now, I personally love an Honest Rutstein, but if we already have 2 white cards, then let me get in with Miriam. Miriam is great. I think this card is about as good as you can get for an uncommon. I think it plays extremely well with things like the Drover Grizzly. I think it plays extremely well with things like the Bighorn. Of course, having that Shepherd early means that this could end up getting brought back if need be, but in general, this is great. I'd love to see this. One of the things I'm hoping we can get on the wheel is either this Take of the Shield or the Drover Grizzly. This is more likely since this just also fits in green-red so well. So we'll keep that our eyes peeled there. Pack 1, Pick 4. Love me a Cunning Coyote. Love me a Longhorn Sharpshooter. So this definitely suggests to me that red is sort of coming down our way from this left. Taking a look here at the white cards, though, we do have this Holy Cow, which is a very reasonable card. Outlaw Medic actually hasn't performed as well as I was hoping for. And then, of course, we also have this Sandstorm Verge, which, again, is a desert, which can be helpful for things like your Oath Blades, or Green Blades, excuse me, as well as clearing out some blockers. It does kind of take up a similar role as this Thunder Lasso, which is another reason why I'm a little low on the Lasso, because you can just play this land over it instead, which also counts as a desert. So this would be something I would consider. Also, you want to pick up at least 2 or 3 Snakeskin Veils if you can, because every single time it's 1 mana for an absolute blowout. I mean, it's absolutely incredibly blowout here with the Snakeskin Veils. So Holy Cow is a perfectly replaceable card. It's a perfectly fine card. I'm not super thrilled to play it, but I'm not upset about it either. Snakeskin Veil, I think, is probably one that I would want to pick up early and often. Pack 1, Pick 5. We do see a Snakeskin Veil here, so I don't feel bad about passing the other one at all now. I think this is a great pickup. Vengeful Townsfolk is fine. I'm not too thrilled about playing that. Otherwise, we could take a Mirage Mesa, and I don't mind taking a Mirage Mesa early on, because if we were to end up opening something like a Calamity, let's say, in packs 2 or 3, that's a mount that we absolutely want to be putting in this deck, or something like a Roxanne. Like, there's plenty of good cards that we could want to be splashing, and Mirage Mesa definitely goes in your deck if you're 2 colors. and absolutely helps you out if you're 3 or more colors. Pack 1, pick 6. We do take a Vengeful Townsfolk here over a third option for the Snakeskin Veil. And I think if everything goes well, we're not playing a Vengeful Townsfolk, but we are playing a second Snakeskin Veil. So I think I would pick this one up here. We've got lots of time to get lots of good creatures. Notably, it seems like this draft is kind of drying up as far as white's concerned. We haven't seen too much, but we do see good things like Explosive Derailment and Lively Dirge. These are really good cards that I would be keeping my eyes peeled for in future drafts. Obviously, right now, this looks like there's a whole lot of turn to move into like an Explosive Derailment or a Lively Dirge, but you know, it's not super early. You could end up in like a white red splash green. You could end up in a black white splash green sort of style here. Both these cards look really good to me. Pack 1, pick 7. We see an Annie joins up. Yeah, this definitely plays really well. Unfortunately, we also have a Frontier Seeker, so you kind of have to choose between these two cards. Both of them are extremely good. Annie joins up plays really well with Miriam because Miriam's trigger on a mount, so therefore you get 2 counters every time that a mount attacks because they are Miriam's triggers. But Frontier Seeker helps you fix your lands, grabbing a plains, and also grabbing mounts. We only have the one right now, but in theory we're going to be getting more. I wouldn't fault you for picking either of these. I think at this moment I would take the Frontier Seeker and let the Annie joins up pass by. Pack 1, pick 8. We see a Trained Arynx in the pack. Oh my gosh, this is it. Yeah, absolutely. This is the premium 2-drop that you want outside of Miriam. You want probably 2 or 3 of these, 2 of those, and so we are well on our way. This is a great sign that we are in the right deck. Pack 1, pick 9. We see the Shepherd of the Clouds wield. Oh my gosh. So this tells me 2 things. 1, this means that we should have first picked it because that means the Bighorn was going to wheel. But 2, Beer Emoji is a lucky son of a gun. This one should not be wheeling at these tables. This definitely should have been picked up. But because it wasn't, you got lucky, kid. Pack 1, pick 10. We see a Nurturing Pixie here. I don't mind this Pixie. I think it's perfectly fine, but I still would like to see this Creosote Heath definitely get picked up. I know that we are going to stretch our mana a little bit, probably by playing this Annie joins up, as we should. And I think this Nurturing Pixie is likely going to be a little bit less impact than making sure that we can cast all of our spells on time. You will likely have more than 23 cards that you will want to play. These are powerful formats with lots of good cards. So being able to end up like spending a value pick on a land definitely also helps casting all of your big cards anyway. Pack 1, pick 11, we saw both the Grizzly and the Take Up the Shield. I didn't think both of these should wheel, but they both did. I think I do take the Drover Grizzly over the Take Up the Shield because we are still a little light on mounts, having only the Bighorn and the Arynx now currently. So definitely love picking up the Grizzly here. Outlaw Medic is a perfectly fine card. I don't think we're going to end up playing it unless we have to. Vengeful Townfolk on the wheel. Again, hopefully this one is relegated to the sideboard and a swamp. Moving on to pack 2, pick 1. We take a look at the rare with the Smuggler's Surprise. I haven't really found this to be that good in mounts, but it is still a good card, right? With the mounts deck, you definitely want to end up having your deck fast and furious, and so this is mainly just like a heroic intervention. 1 and a green creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain hexproof and indestructible to end of turn. If you end up needing it to find some gas, you can. I don't think you're ever casting this for the second mode in white-green unless you absolutely have to. Moving on to other cards, there's not a whole lot here in the pack for us except these 2 removal spells down here. It's really tough to end up saying I should take a removal spell over this rare for us, and so I'm not going to tell you to exactly do that, but both of these definitely are really tempting, particularly this Throw from the Saddle. 2 mana to turn your Trained Arynx into a 4/2 that you can then end up like double strike or first striking with is just really good. So I'm doubting we're going to get both of them to wheel, but we saw things like Explosive Derailment going around last time. So who really knows? Pack 2, pick 2. Okay. Yeah, Ariad's Lullaby is a good one early on, I think, but I'm also, people are playing around it now, and so it is less good than I originally thought. Eartha Joe, definitely a very good card to go along with the Annie joins up. So one of the reasons why is when it plays, Eartha Joe gets 2 mercenaries because that's a trigger that Annie joins up doubles. But then the second one says when you activate an ability that targets a creature or player you control, copy that ability. That's also a triggered ability of Eartha Joe. So all of your mercenaries get +3/+1 when they tap instead of just the +1, or excuse me, +3/+0 instead of just the +1/+0, and you can spread it around because you may choose new targets. targets. So this would also be one I would certainly be reasonable splashing. However, if you told me, I don't even know if I'm playing the Anti-Joins up and I'm just going to grab this Mystical Tether, nobody's ever going to fault you for that. That's not a problem at all. If we happen to see something like this wheel, you know you're in the right lane. Pack 2, pick 3, we see a Wily Duke. Wow, this is great. I was also taking a look at an Aloe Alchemist and a Throw from the Saddle, but Wily Duke solves one of the troubles that the green-white deck has, which is card velocity, continuing to look at more cards every turn, continuing to end up getting things onto the battlefield. Thing that the green-white deck does really well is it plays your original hand really well. It ends up getting a little bit of value here and there, taps down some things, removes some things, and hopefully that's enough. This Wily Duke card, if you can end up attacking with it and then saddling post-combat, you're doing about as good as you can. If you have to saddle pre-combat just to get the saddle triggers on things like this Trained Airings, no big deal. Draw your card, gain your life, and just move on. Everything is great. Love this card. Unfortunately, have to pass by a couple of these other great green cards. Pack 2, pick 4. We see some other great green cards coming through. Betrayal at the Vault, I think I'm getting a little bit higher on. Right away, I was low, 6 mana, even at an instant. This is just too much for me, but I'm becoming more and more inclined that this is a good card because it is an instant. Rise of the Varmints, I do like. It looks like it plays in green-black, and it does, but I've really liked it in green-white as well because one of the things that green-white can struggle with is going wide or being able to saddle all of their mounts. You know, if they have like 4 or 5 mounts, you know, not being able to saddle them all is a real trouble, or having to use a mount to saddle another mount. Rise of the Varmints ends up saying that you can end up putting a bunch of 2/1s on the battlefield as a post-sweeper sort of vibe, a big attack where everything trades off, and you end up just jamming this. I've liked this card quite a bit. Nobody's ever going to fault you for a Spinewoods Paladin. 5 mana, 5/4. This is one of my best commons in the set. At the beginning of the set, it still is. The card's amazing. Let her rip. No problem with that one. Pack 2, pick 5. I see a Requisition Raid. I'm not as big on this Requisition Raid as some people are. Now, I get the anthem of putting a 1/1 counter on each thing, and then there's also some good artifacts and enchantments. I'm higher up on this than when I originally started with it, but it's tough to pass up a Mystical Tether over here, man. I think I just rather would have a second one of these. I'd play like 4 of these if I could. This Mystical Tether is incredible. Pack 2, pick 6. Not really happy or thrilled with any of these things. Ankle Biter's a fine pick. Bighorn really isn't the kind of mount that I want. I want a Beaver. I want the 4/2, this bear down here, this Drover Grizzly. Those are the mounts that I'm really excited about. And Bridal Bighorn is fine, but definitely filler at that point. Ankle Biter really works well with the Throw from the Saddle, which unfortunately we've had to pass 2. So let's see if they come back to us. Pack 2, pick 7. All right. All right, Beer Emoji, this is the first time I think you've got a real straight-up mistake. This Armadillo is not a terribly good card. It's fine, and it definitely attacks as a 4/4, but you have to spend 4 mana to do it every turn. God forbid it gets a little bigger or whatever, but you need to be playing this Bucolic Ranch. Just being able to consistently scry every turn as you need it, and then, God forbid you're able to just draw a random card off of it as well. This upgrades your mana base. It upgrades your card velocity some more. We should be picking this Bucolic Ranch over an Armadillo, which I don't think I've actually sleeved up a single time. I don't think I've put this in a single deck that I've drafted so far. Dance the Tumbleweed's also fine, particularly plays well if we end up picking up a couple deserts, or, this Anti-Joins up plays well, but we should be playing Bucolic Ranch in this deck. Pack 2, pick 8, we see another Ankle Biter, and I think, again, we've got another small mistake here. This Trained Airings is the best common that you want to be seeing. Again, I don't mind an Ankle Biter, but, this one attacks for 3 damage, this one attacks for 1 damage. Also, this one getting the first strike on Saddle is just so much more powerful. It also gets buffed by your Miriams. It also allows your Wily Duke. In general, this is the sort of grease that your machine is going to need to keep running smoothly. Pack 2, pick 9, we see a Mystical Tether on the wheel. That's incredible for us. Love to see that. Unfortunately, I think after just picking up the 2 Ankle Biters, we want to end up picking this Throw from the Saddle. But beggars certainly can't be choosers here, which, we're certainly never going to turn down a pick 9 Mystical Tether. Pack 2, pick 10, we see an Arius Lullaby, and I feel very confident that this is kind of where this pick should be. I'm probably still playing it a lot of the time. I think if I could remove it from the deck for a couple Throw from the Saddles, I'd be happy for that. But, sometimes you just got to play. Destroy target tap creature, you gain 2 life. There's nothing wrong with this. Pack 2, pick 11, nothing in the Pack Forest. Pick your uncommon, get your Vault Progress. Pack 2, pick 12, sure, Decimate is fine. These are cards we're not playing. Pack 2, pick 13, a Voracious Varmint. This is great. This is a great little addition. I don't think I want to pick this card highly, but I love having one in the deck. And of course, we end up on a Boneyard Desecrator for the last pick. Moving on to pack 3, pick 1. Oh man, do we have some tough choices here. Miriam, great card. Obviously, very much what we want. But this Hard Bristle Bandit, another good card, and the Outcaster Greenblade is incredible. Now, we don't have any deserts that we could have been picking up. There was a white-green one, and then also that Bucolic Ranch. But, having this Outcaster Greenblade, I believe, is the best uncommon in the set. It is just incredible. It's a 4/5 for 3 very often. Also searches you out a land, and it could be a value land like an Arid Archway or something similar. This Outcaster Greenblade is incredible. Having 0 deserts, I can certainly get behind a Miriam. Stake your claim on your green-white deck and just sort of move on from there. But it's a shame that we couldn't draft in a way where this is the real big winner. Pack 3, pick 2, we see a Sterling Keykeeper down here. I think I would prefer the Drover Grizzly just because now that we've got a second Miriam, it's more likely that we're going to have that Miriam on 2. And although Sterling Keykeeper plays well, we already have this Lasso. And so if you told me, hey, I'm leaving the Lasso on the sideboard, I want to put the Keykeeper instead, that's fine. But this gets +1/+1 counters from Miriam. This lets your Wily Duke tap. I think we want a critical mass of mounts to also end up bringing things back with Shepherd of the Clouds. And this is kind of one of the mounts that I'm looking for. 4-power mount. This looks great. Pack 3, pick 3, we see an Intrepid Stablemaster. That's an excellent card. We also see the Creosote Heat, the Throw from the Saddle, the Frontier Seeker. All these things suggest to me that you are in the right lane. We should be playing mounts, and I could see an argument for all 3 of these cards. I think in this deck, I think I'd prefer the Throw from the Saddle because we have the 2 Ankle Biters. And even if we had like the Airing Silvered or something like that, I think I want this Throw from the Saddle. We're a pretty low curve deck. And we're not really splashing any other mounts, so I'm not that keen on this, but also it's a 2/2 that ends up getting you things like your Bighorn and your Spinewood Paladins out sooner. I don't mind this at all. Pack 3, pick 4, we see a Journey to Nowhere. I don't mind that pick. I also wouldn't mind a Full Steam Ahead or Dance the Tumbleweeds. These are all great picks. I think Journey to Nowhere is tough to argue against. 2 mana to remove a creature is about as good as things can ever get. Pack 3, pick 5, we see an Aloe Alchemist. This is a great one. Really tough to say, oh, I don't want the Spinewoods Paladin. I would prefer the Aloe Alchemist. These get better in multiples, as do these. It's a toss-up, right? I think the low curve strategy that we have looks really good. Being able to plot it is very relevant in this deck for only 2, and then getting it cheap the following turn is awesome. Pack 3, pick 6. Yeah, we get our Take Up the Shield here. We also could look at this Mobile Homestead. I've been a little down on. Obviously, it's much better in the Mounts deck than it is anywhere else, but in general, it's a pretty replaceable card, in my opinion. One thing to note is that Miriam does say Mount or Vehicle has hexproof, and Mounts or Vehicles get 1/1 counters, so that does make me feel a lot better about playing something like this. If you can get a Miriam down, and then it turns into a 4/4 and a 5/5 and continues to grow. But I don't mind passing this one up, especially for a reasonable combat trick like this Take Up the Shield, which I don't believe we have one yet. So this is great. Pack 3, pick 7, we see another Train Airings. Great, get this thing in the deck. I wish we had one more, but 2 is going to have to do. Pack 3, pick 8, we see a Map of Frontier. I'm not playing any of these cards. Even the Map of Frontier itself is not very good, right? Because it's great in more of the fix 'em, play 5 colors sort of strategy, as well as the go big villainous wealth style of things. Here, where we're topping out at 4 or 5 anyway, like this is just not going to help us. Pack 3, pick 9, a Cactarantula. Short. Now, not really a mount and kind of a bit bigger than we need to. I'm not actually huge on this card in this deck because we don't have any deserts. I think I might end up picking up this Arid Archway, which turns into 2 lands when it's in your hand, right? One is the land that it is, tapping for 2, but then you also still get to keep the other land that it bounces and have a land for next turn. So this is something you can end up keeping probably, like a 3-lander on the play, and it's actually 4 mana's worth, which kind of casts all of your spells. So I don't mind this Arid Archway. It's probably at its worst in blue-red and then white-green as like the 2 worst, mainly because white-green wants to go fast and put some things out there. And I can't really fault you for taking a big 6/5. It's just unfortunate that we have to pay the full 6 mana for it. Pack 3, pick 10. Sure, we got a Red Rock Sentinel. I probably pick up the Rare Herd just to add to your collection. Pack 3, pick 11. We do pick up the Desert, which is great. and having the Cactarantula and picking up the Desert is tough. Throw from the Saddle this slate is really hard to pass by. Even this Frontier Seeker, these are all great cards. I think if we had prioritized this Creosote Heath earlier, we'd be able to take the Throw from the Saddle now, but I definitely get the understanding that we want to be picking this up now. And I can't really fault you for this pick, but it's just sort of a shame to see these other cards pass by. Take the Shield again is great and fine. Trick Shot also looks good in a Gold Rush to finish things out. All right, taking a look at the deck. One of the couple things I'm noticing is that we've got Mystical Tether in the sideboard. That should not be here. We definitely need to be playing that. We'll take a look in a moment to see where we're at. This Smuggler Surprise I can see in the sideboard. I've never been like super thrilled, but it's a good card. So these are probably two that I'm looking at. And the only other thing is this Armadillo. I remember taking this over a Bucolic Ranch early on, and unfortunately I think that the Bucolic Ranch makes our deck every time, also plays well as a Desert, but unfortunately this Armored Armadillo ended up in the sideboard because we ended up getting better cards later on. Separating out our creatures and our non-creature spells, we've got two Ankle Biters in here, which I haven't been super impressed with. I don't mind one, especially if you have some Throw from the Saddles, which unfortunately we don't. So I think I probably would cut one of these and bring this Mystical Tether in for certain. That would be one swap I would make. Otherwise, you've got a good creature density. We've got some mounts. I think I would prefer a couple more. I think we passed on a Drover Grizzly as well as a Trained Airings for a couple of other things early on as well. You know, imagine this Ankle Biter was another Trained Airings. We would feel really good about things. Of course, we have our Singleton Desert for the Cactarantula, a couple of big fat things towards the end. One flyer is awesome, but I think the way that you're getting through mainly is this Drover Grizzly giving trample to all of your things while also potentially holding a lasso. This Requisition Raid I think is fine. This one is also a little suspect to me. I wouldn't mind this as a sideboard card. I know we're going into best of one, so maybe if you want to play it, that's fine. This Smuggler's Surprise also kind of plays really well because what you can do is you can sort of attack him with all of your mounts and 4-power things. They start to block and trade things off. You cast this for 2 mana and all of your stuff lives, doing as a little bit of a mini board wipe. So I would look at like these 3 cards as your 3 potential cards to cut. I would look at these 2 cards as potential cards to bring in. Maybe even this third Take the Shield, but that's a little suspect to me. Yeah, and that's where I would end up on this deck. Thank you so much for submitting your draft. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a thing or two. I, of course, had a lot of fun taking a look at it, and I'm sure we'll hear from you again shortly, Mr. Beer Emoji. If you want to have your draft featured on Run It Back, feel free to send me an email at runitbackmtg@gmail.com or a message in Discord with your 17 lands data. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.